This is mental wellness in the modern world. Our mission is to connect biblical and psychological principles to better understand ourselves and the world around us. In a time when chaos is loud and pressure feels constant, peace isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. Mental wellness isn't just about surviving, it's about finding clarity, strength, and meaning in the everyday. This is where honest conversations happen, where healing meets truth, and where you're reminded that you're not alone. Hi, I'm Eleni Lobene with Benison Kingdom Network, and this is Mental Wellness in the Modern World. Our mission is to connect biblical and psychological principles to help us better understand ourselves and the world around us. So, small question for today. What makes us who we are? Well, I'm going to attempt to answer this with starting with a psychological concept that you've probably heard of before, which is nature versus nurture. Now, the idea of nature versus nurture has been a debate in psychology for decades upon decades. And the idea is that there are factors in our lives that are our nature, our genetics, our biology that influence who we are. Then there's also this idea of nurture, which is our environmental factors, right? These are the influences in our world from our environment, such as education, our culture, our parents that influence who we are. And modern psychologists will pretty much agree that there's a combination of nature and nurture that interplays to create our identity and how we interact with the world. And what's very interesting is that in the Bible, there are references to these concepts, not at all in the same terminology, but that essentially confirm these ideas of nature and nurture influencing who we are as people. So we know in the Psalm, there is the verse that says, "We are knit together in our mother's wombs." And I would argue that there's perhaps no more delicate inner workings than the human brain, which involves millions and millions and millions of neural connections and pathways to make our brains function. And that also contribute to our identity and how we approach the world. Also, we know that the Bible is filled with references to how our families, our communities, and our cultures influence who we are and our behaviors. Entire books of the Bible are actually letters to churches, and they are done in such a way, written in such a way as to address the entire church because people tend to behave in similar ways as the people in their communities. We are influenced very heavily by the people around us in our life experiences, in our circumstances. So, if we want to change our lives, do we try to change our nature or our nurture? Now, of course, immediately you're going to think, well, of course, it's our nurture because we can only really control our environmental factors, right? We can maybe try and change our job. We can try and get a divorce or change our relationships. We could try and have a baby to make our lives different or better in some way. There are a million different ways that people try to change their situations or essentially their nurture in order to change their lives. But I would actually argue that, and also in alignment with modern psychological theory and cognitive behavioral therapy principles, you can actually work with your nature to improve your life as well. And in some ways, this is really cool because it's not dependent on external factors. All right. We can actually spend time getting to know ourselves, getting to know our nature, getting to know our patterns of behavior that are just innate to who we are. And they could have also been influenced by our environment, of course, absolutely. But we have these automatic processes in our everyday life that we may or may not be aware of. And they are written into how we respond to other people, how we respond to challenges, our immediate responses when things go wrong. Those are things that we have learned over time that are connected to who we are fundamentally. And we can, by identifying them and really spending time trying to understand ourselves, and you can use this through prayer, you can unravel things that you feel you actually want to unravel. And you can control your reactions in ways that no one else can, and in ways that are completely independent of your environment. So let's say you are constantly triggered by somebody, a person in particular who maybe every time they call you, you know that something's going to happen, you're going to get upset. You know they're going to bring up some socio-political issue that you don't see eye to eye on and you're going to get upset. Or you know they're going to bring up a complicated social situation that you don't want to drudge up in the moment, but it always seems to happen. You can identify those triggers and you can change how you respond. And that can look a lot of different ways, from drawing boundaries to actually calmly responding to the situation or putting up a mental barrier against it. Now, there's a lot of different approaches, and we can talk about all of these different things we can do. But the thing I really want you to think about is how you have control of yourself and how you can change how you see the world and how that can actually change your everyday life. So, all that to say, we're just getting started here. Send me your questions, and I'm Eleni Lobene on the Benison Kingdom Network, and we're here to really dive in on these psychological principles and how we can change our lives for the better.